Hello everyone, I'm Steve Clark and a very warm welcome to Brooklands this evening. Thank you as ever for being here and thank you for supporting the Trust. So enough of me, will you please give a usual very warm Brooklands welcome to Steve Parrish and Mick Grant.
After you. Thank you very much indeed, Steve. Welcome. Thank you very, very much indeed. You'll notice, Mick, we've had the step put in for you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
No, it was actually for me. But seriously, lovely to see you here. We've been trying to organise this for some time, and I know we've got an awful lot to talk about. I'd like to say thank you to Ray Gale. We've gone very high-tech tonight because we've got lots of pictures of you coming up on the screen behind. Now, we were going to have a monitor down here, but we decided that we maybe need some neck exercise so we can see what's going on up there. And so thank you, Ray, for putting together a whole collage of your life story, really, Mick, all the way through here. We've cut out some of the ones with those girlfriends and bits and pieces that you didn't want on here. And interestingly, I made a few notes to just check out a few things. Just firstly, another round of applause for a man that's won 7 TT, 3 Grand Prix, been really the stalwart of British motorcycle racing right the way through 70s and 80s. Mick Grant is a proper man.
Before we go any further, can I just say that the bit of film there with Steve at Goodwood, you saw him actually leading. He'd already done a lap. The cheat was that much.
Now, interesting, because on my notes I've got Mick Grant, cheating bastard. And honestly, I can say that over the years I've maybe flexed the rules a little bit, but nothing to this man. He's the only man that I know that's out-cheated me throughout my career. Back in the days, it used to be forget the flag dropping, just go when Mick does. That was really the rule.
I remember we did in I think 1985 the beginning of the Superstock.
Yes.
And I won the first 4 rounds on the Suzuki.
I remember. The cheating one.
Which was the best bike, in fairness, it wasn't me. And halfway through the season, you came past me at Snetterton with about 15 miles an hour to spare. And as you came past and like drafted me, I thought, that's not legal. So I actually put a protest in, because our team manager, Rex Whitey, wasn't there. He was ill somewhere. And I've always felt bad about it, and I really do apologise, because the scrutineers pulled his bike apart. They didn't actually find what you were cheating at, but they found a little blip in the inlet that had been smoothed off, and that's how they chucked you out. And
yeah.
I really feel bad about
I know
it.
Maybe
I don't feel that bad.
No, yeah, I'm sure you don't. All I know is you did sleep that night, or you allegedly. I did check with Carol that you did, but I know you did apologise in your book for that. And then, in fact, as the evening goes on, I'll tell you how I got him back, actually, more recently at Donington Park. But there's been this kind of toing and froing going on over the years. But Ray's put together some nice pictures and bits and pieces. Mick, I looked up. You actually started quite late in life racing, didn't you?
I did, yes.
Realistic.
Yeah.
25 or something like that?
Yeah, something like that, yeah.
So, because of money, I guess, is it? I mean, a lot of people forget now. Nowadays, if you haven't won a championship by the time you're 6 or 7 years old, you're knackered.
That's right, yeah. I was a bit lost. I did a fine arts course at doing a teacher training thing, which I'm not an academic. I didn't want to do it. And I just left, and I went just taking any labouring jobs and whatever.
Okay.
And I just couldn't see a future. And I started racing on the old Veloset.
Yeah.
And I was no good on it. I mean, I went 3 years and never even had a sniffer to win or anything.
Right.
But suddenly, I could see a light at the end of the tunnel.
Okay.
And even if I hadn't been good enough to sort of make a living at it, I'd have still been doing it.
Right.
And
just for the fun of it and the cracks.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. And I say, back then, and I was the same, you had to kind of work like hell in the week and then get enough money to go racing.
Yeah.
And you were mentioning, a friend of yours said the other day when you mentioned you were retiring, he said, how can you retire from never having a job? But you actually did initially. You initially did. Like me, I worked for 5 years. Yeah.
Later in life, when I was team manager, and you get these fathers coming up to you, and they've got a big motorhome, the kid's got a little paddock bike, and they say, come and look at our Jimmy because he's going to be world champion. And you think, poor little Jimmy is so spoiled that if he gets any higher up, every level you go up, it gets harder and harder. When the going gets really hard, he won't know what's hit him.
No.
Sure. We came up the hard way.
Yeah, I think so. And I think, truthfully, and it sounds like I get the violin out, if it hadn't have all worked, we could have kind of gone back to work because you kind of knew what to do with your hands and everything
If
else.
it hadn't worked for me, I would have still been riding my Veloset if I couldn't afford anything else.
Yeah, well, you've still got one, haven't you?
Yeah,
right,
absolutely.
Not the same one. Not the same one.
No.
And that's your day-to-day road bike as such?
It comes out when it's sunny.
Right, okay.
A bit like me.
Yeah. I'm a bit like that. I need 20 acres of blue sky above me before I fire off on a motorbike. So we're moving on very quickly. We won't let this, a TR2 Yamaha, I think I had one of those, but the Yamahas kind of changed the world a little bit, didn't they, realistically, in the fact that we, initially, there was a lot of single-cylinder Nortons and bits and pieces out there, and all of
I was just, at this particular time in my career, I couldn't decide whether to give up drinking 8 or 9 pints a night and go racing or do whatever.
Right.
And because at this stage I've got a big red beard from the art college.
And it looks like a fat arse, actually.
Fat ass and a big belly. And I decided to I knocked the beard on the head in the short term. And I went racing.
Okay, all right. Well, it worked because that kept you out of a proper job for all these many years. And you have ridden you've ridden virtually every motorcycle that's ever been made, haven't you, as far as racing is concerned?
Never raced an Indian.
An Indian?
Never raced an Indian.
Right, okay. Well, I could probably arrange that, actually, if you fancied. I've got one in my garage at home. I've got to give them a plug because they lend it to me. But Jim Lee, helmet, logo, if you saw Mick racing or parading nowadays, it would have the JL on it, which was Jim Lee, your sponsor, a long-time sponsor.
That was an amazing... It was the Battle Motorcycle Club, and I used to go there. I was on my Veloset, and obviously the way it worked for me really was that on my Veloset, once I got after about 3 years and I got a bit more experience, I was starting to get sort of reasonable places in nationals. And people thought, bloody hell, if you had a right motorbike, it'd do all right.
Yeah.
And Jim was one of the founder members of Battle Motor Club. And at the time I was working in a carpet factory in Battle, driving a forklift.
Carpet factory, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And Jim came up to me.
I know you've laid a few things, but that's... Sorry.
This is going to get nasty. And Jim came to me one night at the Battle Club and said, right, I'll sponsor you.
Okay.
And it was fantastic because suddenly Jim made all the frames that were around.
Yeah. Kind of like a spine frame, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was, yeah. And I was working for them. It was fantastic.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, it's funny, isn't it? Because you look back over your careers and there's always crossroads that you come up to, but sometimes you just happen to be right place, right time, meet the right person.
Yeah.
And that can really take you through something that, if you hadn't met him, maybe not be here tonight, with me boring you about your life and everything else. But again, moving back on to more and more strange things. What we've got here, Norton here, have we?
That was, again, a Jim Lee framed Norton. That's still about somewhere.
Is it?
Yeah. And that was just held on 4 big rubber bobbins. It used to flop about, but it was a fantastic handling bike.
Okay.
My claim to fame on that, in the Isle of Man in maybe 70 or 71, in my own mind, I was going to be first ever 100-mile-an-hour lap. And I was coming up to Signpost Corner, and I can't remember the guy's name. And I was a long way behind him, and I thought, it was on a Manx Norton or something. I thought, if I don't get in front of this guy now, I'm not going to get my lap in.
Right.
So I took a big lunge from about 40 yards back and clattered him. We both went clattering down the road. Not good.
I bet. No. Was he a big fella? Did he come after you?
No, he didn't. Well, he couldn't because he got a broken collarbone, so I was fairly safe.
Well, and was it a good lap up until then, or it felt a good lap?
Yeah. It felt like a good lap, but we'll never know.
Okay. Going back, have you ever got into a fight over a racing incident or anything, or ever been threatened, or whatever?
No, the nearest I've got to that was when we sponsored Whittam on the Suzukis.
Right.
And we're at Scarborough.
Right.
And he did a fairly daredevil overtake. And the bloke who we did it to was a big hairy fella with hands like a gorilla. And he came up to knock shit out of James. And James has got Andrea, his girlfriend, and James saw this guy coming up. He grabbed Andrea and put him in front of him.
Are these here tonight, Jay? I must admit, going very quickly from Scarborough, I actually came very close to getting my head beaten up at Scarborough, and that was on the journey home, having left. And you remember it used to be the traffic was horrendous on a Sunday night coming out of Scarborough, and I'm in my van with my girlfriend Linda and my big tall mechanic Martin Brookman, and I overtook everyone down the outside till he got to the last bit, tried to cut in with my van and caravan, and hooters were going with us, and this flipping bloke, about 6'8", got out of a Mini and came over and ripped the driver's door open where I'm sat, and I jumped straight across my girlfriend and my mechanic and landed up the other side, and in the end I jumped out and this bloke was running, the whole traffic came to a halt because we were running around the van and caravan with this bloke chasing me, and my mechanic, who could have beaten him up easily, was sat there laughing. But anyway, I digress. Yamaha, I think you said earlier it's probably the best bike you ever rode, or the bike you enjoyed most?
If I was asked the question, the best part of my career, you'd expect to think the Kawasaki years or the Suzuki years or whatever, but I really think when we were doing privateer bikes, I mean, this was Paget, but just the 2 years after that, I had my own 250 and 350, which you could actually pay for out of my winnings. And you just went where you wanted to go, you did what you wanted to do. We'd go and do a few Grand Prix, come back into the race of the year. It was just fantastic.
I completely agree. I think a lot of people forget that the better you do, the higher the level you get, probably the less fun it is, because you've got commercial reasons for doing it. You've got sponsors that are coming along and paying for everything, and you're obliged to focus a lot more. And these were the great days. Well, like you say,
I mean, fast forward to 1985, the year I stopped. I just stopped enjoying it. I was still going reasonably because I won the championship, but I wasn't enjoying it anymore.
No. And Mick and I were discussing it on the journey down here today. Can you imagine now for a top superbike rider, a Grand Prix rider, when you've got a staff of 35 people at the circuit with you, and you've got a dietitian there, you've got the guy, the psychiatrist is there, and you've got so many people around you, and if you don't perform, you're letting so many people down.
I would have been so much better if I'd have had a psychiatrist helping me.
Stopping it, yeah. I needed a good-looking fitness instructor myself. But anyway. TZs, we went back to it, they changed the world. I don't know about you, you're not as deaf as I am, are you? But they what made me deaf as well. Pardon, yeah. No silencers on them, pea shooter exhaust and everything else, and you'd sit in your garage revving them up and make sure the jetting was right.
If that one that's just been, that was Silverstone, and that's Jarno Saarinen.
Okay, you can see the handlebars, actually.
The quickest guy I ever rode against.
Right. He would be the man that you would say you felt had more ability than
anyone else I've ever seen.
Really?
Yeah.
Really? That's interesting.
And that was the 350 race, and we were changing places for the full race. And my poor old father, God bless him, he was in the stand, and he was a bit of a Woodbine fanatic, and till that's from the end, we were still together, and he was that excited he'd actually got 2 cigarettes lit at the same time. And if he'd have asked me beforehand, I could have told him that till that's from the end he was going to clear off and leave me. But there you go.
Right, and I never got to race against him. Sadly, he was killed shortly after this.
That's right, at Monza.
At Monza that year with Pasolini and everything else. But you can just see that he had his handlebars, and he always bent down a lot.
From the ice racing. Yeah. And we all did the same. Once we'd seen how quick he was,
thought that must be the answer.
That's the answer.
Nothing to do with his skill or ability. It's got to be those handlebars. It was an enormous. Now we're moving on, and interestingly, you're still a little bit involved with Norton right now. But who flipping hell designed those leathers? Or is that an oversuit?
There's not too much imagination there, is there?
No.
They were red, and the bike was a powder blue. It's actually quite a nice looking bike. It never ran properly.
That was the Peter Williams design bike?
Yeah. It used to have the pannier tanks, and it got a small tank just under my elbow there. And it had a little cam pump on the swing arm. Right. So on the start line, the mechanics were having to do this to keep the pump going.
Right.
At that time, every car in the world had this little cam pump. Yeah? Not a problem. No. The Norton ran that cam pump for 2 years and never got the thing working right.
So you wouldn't want to be going to a smooth circuit as you were knackered?
No. We did, my first time ever out of the country, I went to a race meeting in Parrish at a marketplace called Runges. Yeah. And Phil Reed was my teammate. And I mean, I love Phil to bits. He's a real character. And he looked after me. And he took me out and looked at me. I'd never been out of, I think I'd been to Scotland once, that's all. I wasn't very well travelled. And in the race, it was around this marketplace, and typical French, they put the markets the stores for the vegetables and that, and then put them on big lumps of tarmac, and in between they hadn't moved the tarmac, so it's like each one is like that. There's a few of these undulations. And Reedy said to me, because it was a push start, he said, well, Kent Anderson on the 350 Yamaha, he'll be the first away, because that's easy starting. Aggo will start quick. He said, if we don't get away real early, we're never going to see the front. So the flag dropped, and by fluke, the Norton started really quick.
You went just before the flag dropped, yeah?
Yeah. I've been watching you earlier. And we went to I got behind Aggo the first gone, there's about 3 hairpin bends, and then we start going over these undulations. Well, typical of Norton, the first practice it had been raining, so we didn't get a proper run. The second practice, the Norton misfired, they only got about 2 laps in. And I've never been really any good at counting. And we're going over the first jump, and you're just about airborne. The second jump, the second hump, you're about 2 foot off the floor. And over the third one, as he's going up, I'm going to the dip. And I thought, the fool is braking, he's braking one too early. And I'd miscounted. As he tipped the MV in, I'm 3 foot above him. And I've got both brakes on full, the wheels are locked, and it didn't make a damn difference, and I landed on top of him. And eventually we landed in all these straw bales, and there's one leg stuck up, and I thought that's got to be him. One boots to get out of the straw bales. We got him going and got him going again. And he did a few more laps, and then he came to me afterwards. His MV didn't finish. And he came to me afterwards and because with it being a market, there's lots of crates and that about. And he came to me waving a nail. He said, this is from the Norton, this caused me puncture. The nail. And to this day, I don't know whether he was joking or what. But
what, really? He reckons he got the...
He had a puncture, and he reckoned it was a nail off the Norton.
But he had no idea you'd hit him for 3 foot above him or anything else like that. Good on you. Well done. Well, I mean, actually, for you as well, Giacomo Agostini had a pretty injury-free career.
Yeah.
You had a few, but nothing terribly nasty.
No.
I remember you hurt yourself at the Northwest a fair bit.
Yeah, that was a mechanical.
Yeah. Rear axle.
I learned fairly on that if you're going to fall off, don't do it on the fast corners, do it on the slow bits. It's a lot less painful.
Right, okay. But arguably, you, even more than me, you started earlier than me, you came through some scary periods where you lost a lot of good mates and you raced on a lot of dangerous circuits.
Yeah, I mean, the one earlier with Jarno, that was at Monza. And I've always been fairly good at starting. And in the 250 race, there'd been the 350 race earlier, and there'd been a lot of oil put down. And some of the rides wanted to stop the race and get it cleared up, but the Italians wouldn't go for it. I was on maybe I think the third row of the grid, and the flag dropped. And I used to practice my starts, so I was good, even though I might have cheated a little bit as well. And I started it, and for some reason it stalled. So I was maybe 2 seconds getting the thing going again. And by that time, the main bunch had gone. And of course, Jarno and Pasolini are in the front, and they both collided and went.
I had no idea you were in that race.
Oh, yeah. And the amazing thing is that I saw Kim Newcomb got killed in front of me at Silverstone.
Yeah.
And it just high-sided him, and he went about 40 metres on the grass before he hit these railway sleepers. And if he'd have put the brakes on, it'd have been off, it'd have been out in the next practice
Right,
session.
okay, he tried to stay on.
And from that, if ever I got into bother, I used to get off. And this particular crash at Monza, it was horrendous. There were bikes, there must have been 20 bikes down.
Really?
There were tanks coming over my head, it was horrible. And for some reason, I didn't get off. I thought, you're safer on the bike. And it's a decision you make in a fraction of a second. And it saved me.
Saved you.
Amazing.
Yeah. I mean, quite honestly, you have to say that luck comes into it, doesn't it?
Absolutely,
There's
yeah.
no question about it.
Yeah.
TT, 7 TT wins, a great lot of success there, starting number 1 there on a 350.
Yeah, that particular race, we were actually on the point of signing the contract with John Player, not my first race with them. And going over Ballaugh Bridge, there used to be a commentator called Jeff Cannell.
Remember him?
He was quite a nice bloke, but very abrasive. And apparently, I used to have this theory over Ballaugh Bridge. You could either do it like Aggo did it, which is braking not quite to the hump, then just touching the throttle, and you land, it looks very stylish, land on the back wheel. But in my book, that was never the quickest. The quickest way was to go right onto the hump with the back wheel, which made it look untidy. He landed on the front, but it saved the gearbox, and it was quicker. And my wife, Carol, was saying that, Frank Parrish, the Norton boss, he'll not be signing you because every time you go over Ballaft Bridge, Jeff Cannell's saying he's wild, he's going to crash, he's riding beyond his ability. So, well, the 125 race was on. I went to see Jeff, and he was in the pub just past the bridge, and he's upstairs in the bedroom with all his radio gear. And I said, Jeff, and the first time I met him, I said, Jeff, don't mind me saying so, but I'm landing on the front wheel because I think it's the safest way of doing it. And he said, well, I see it as being dangerous, and that's what I'm going to call it. Come back to the 350 race. The first lap, I was in a bit of a rush. So I landed on the front wheel, and he's at it again. Carol said, oh, he's at it, he'll not finish a race, he's landed, he just looks completely out of control. The second lap round, I had a 30-second lead. So I thought, all right, I'll have him here. So I went over and I did the Agostini thing, landed on the back wheel. He said, oh, at long last he's got it right, thank God for that. Then the third lap came round, I'd had about a minute. It was one of those days it was going good. I had a minute and a half lead. And I didn't leave the floor, I just stuck 2 fingers up. And he said, oh, is that confident? He's even waving at me. But he actually had the last laugh because I fell off at Parliament Square.
Oh, really? Oh, dear.
On some oil.
On some oil, of course. Or
not my fault.
One of those greasy worms. My first proper race at the Isle of Man, TT, was, I think it was 77 on an RG 500. And I went to Mick, who was a very stalwart of the TT and raced there many, many years. And I was struggling with the Suzuki down Solby Straight. It was lock to lock, shaking, because back in the days, it was bumpy, wasn't it? I mean, it's very, very, very smooth. Yeah. And I seriously went to Mick, because he was probably the most experienced person. I said, Mick, struggling at Solby Straight, come out of Quarry Bends, RG switching into 5th, 6th, and things lock to lock. I said, you know, what, can you help me? He said, yeah, right down the middle of the road. I said, is that smoother? He says, no, the trees are further away. And that, thank you for that tip. Yeah. Yeah, very, very good and true as well. So that's probably the same race. Yeah. John Davidson Group, that was another sponsor then.
Yeah, he's from Gretna Green.
Is he?
Yeah,
all right.
Yeah, here's me. Yeah, he was a good guy.
A car dealer or bike dealer or?
He did a nationwide company doing land drainage.
Okay. Right.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
All right, well, that same helmet design, of course. Where's that? No idea.
That's the TT.
Okay.
And that's actually John Williams' bike.
Right.
John Williams had a very good sponsor called Gerald.
I remember.
Gerald Brown.
Gerald Brown, yeah.
And in practice at the TT, John Williams was in front of me. It was a mixed practice. He was on a 3-cylinder Triumph production bike. And we came round Glentrammon, and you know the jump just after Glentrammon?
Yeah.
Well, there's me and Tom Heron on 250s, just about 70 or 80 yards behind him. And we just lost sight of him for a minute. And as we came to the jump, there's bits of bike and petrol tanks and wheels, and it's horrible. Mm. And I wasn't going to stop, because I don't like to see things like that.
No, I don't, no.
But Tom, I slowed down to miss all this debris, and Tom pulled in front of me, and it made me stop. I thought, I really don't want to be here. Mm. And we're looking around, we couldn't see John anywhere on the road. John. And there's a big mansion with a big grass lawn. And he sat in the middle of the lawn, just holding his foot, he'd just broken his toe.
Bloody hell.
And he'd gone between these trees, God knows how he did it. Anyway, Gerald Brown came up to me and said he's not riding, we'd like to ride his bikes.
Okay.
I thought it'll save my bike, so I rode his bikes.
All right, okay. Bloody hell, he was a lucky fella from that then. And
yeah.
Sad it didn't. Slippery Sam.
Yeah.
First TT win.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
That was it. Yeah.
And you did mention earlier that it got a few illegal parts on it. Not that I'm spreading rumours.
That was nothing to do with me.
Oh right. Okay. You didn't know when you rode it. No.
No.
Okay.
But that was. I mean, it was so illegal. It was not true. But I do suspect that everybody else in the race had got the same sort of idea.
Yeah.
But, I mean, now it's scrutinised so well, it's just very hard to get away with it.
Yeah, no, it absolutely. There was all sorts of things that people would do. I remember titanium axle shafts and things, and they put a little metal bung in the end, so that if the magnet came on...
Yeah. I remember Les Williams, I'd broken my wrist at Brands Hatch in the Transatlantic Trophy, and I went to the TT and I broke my scaphoid, and I got my hand in a plaster. And Les I'd never met Les before, and I saw him on the Monday morning practice, and I shook hands with him, and he saw this wrist in plaster, and he was horrified. But we coped with it. We altered the throttle so I couldn't bend my wrist, so I got to
roll it
like that.
All right, brilliant. Back to the Nortons again, and everything. It's good to say Peter Williams by now. Had he hurt himself by now?
No. In that race in the TT, I was asked by Frank Parrish, who was a Norton team manager, to finish second to Peter.
Okay. Team orders as such, right.
But I mean, I couldn't, at that time...
Well, you never said you were not good at counting numbers.
No. But I mean, I did finish second to him, but at that time, I wouldn't have beaten Peter around there anyway.
Right, okay. Yeah, they were quite futuristic machines, weren't they? That looks very interesting.
Yeah, they look good, yeah.
That
was a very wet Hutchinson one, and the wrong way around.
Wrong way round, I remember the race. I enjoyed it that way round, quite frankly.
It was good, wasn't it? Yeah. Kill was a bit daunting.
It was a little bit, because the sleepers were like the...
Did you do the wrong way around short and long circuit?
Just the long.
I've done it both, the short and
long. Right, okay.
Yeah.
What, the others all did the long and you just cut through? So
I knew I shouldn't have come tonight.
It's never ending. But no, it was quite interesting, actually. You could never get away with it now. Like you say, Paddock Hill had sleepers right on the edge of the track and everything else, and stuff like that. That looks like Croxford's stopped over there, but we'll don't know. That's a big field there. Ditchburn 2, isn't it? You 3. Ron Hasler.
I see you still haven't got the hang of starting number 4.
No, I hadn't. No. Stan Woods, there 5. Barry Sheen's 7.
Jeff Barry.
Yeah.
Tony Rutter.
Yeah, 25.
That's Stan.
Chatterton 34. It looks like.
That's Rutter there.
Tuxworth, isn't it? With them funny.
And that's was it Bernard Murray with the stripe thing?
Yeah, it could be. Yeah.
And Paul Smart just behind him.
Yeah. What a grid that is. I don't know where that is actually.
And Ditchburn, my teammate.
Yeah. Interesting stuff. Percy Tate, 95, who I'm told is not at all well.
All right.
Bless him. No, he's not very well at all at the moment. Okay. Now you've got at the Classic TT next year. There's going to be an auction, and you've got one of your Kawasaki's for sale, I think.
Yes.
You're always going up there. And
yeah.
The 750 water-cooled.
Yes.
Similar to that? No, that's way earlier.
That's the 75 and 76. They were the same. And then they changed them for 77, 78. Right. That's an early one.
Okay.
Yeah. You can see the tidy environment they worked in.
Yes. Yeah. Look at those tyres, Avon ribbed or whatever they were.
Yeah.
Moving on. You had I wouldn't say a strange start, but you didn't stick your legs out a great deal. In fact, another interesting thing I found out on the journey here, Mick said he only touched his knee on the floor twice and it scared the shit out of you both times.
It did, yeah. It did. I used to sit in the bike. And when I started, no one actually stuck these out.
No.
And
John Cooper reckoned he was the first to do it.
The first time I did it was in Imola, going through Aqua Minerale. And I don't know how it happened, but I clouted the curve with my knee. I've never been as frightened in my life.
Really? Right.
Horrible.
Jesus, you were off. Right. Well, that's Joey Dunlop in it behind you, isn't it? Yeah. And that's a different style with a lovely Joey Dunlop. So is that the bike you've got now then?
That's the one that's for sale, yeah.
Okay, the genuine bike, which there wouldn't be many of them ever made.
I think maybe about a dozen altogether, but they get...
Sure.
I only know 3 or 4 that exist.
Okay. It looks to me like you're going to land perfectly there.
I got it wrong.
Yeah. Yeah, that looks like the perfect... It's a pretty bike, I must admit. It's
I think I'm a little bit biased, but if you see a side-on shot of that, it's the most economically built and engineered bike in the world for the time.
And 180, was it, or something?
90.
190 at the TT, reckoned down from Craignabar.
I mean, some people didn't... They said, we don't believe the figure. But if you remember, at Daytona, coming off the banking, we'd done 180 miles an hour. Sure. And that was absorbing a lot more power than going down from the crowd.
And it's downhill, tailwind and everything else. Yeah. Classic TT 75, or what was known as the Classic. Yeah. That's the 500 then, is it? Yeah.
Oh, that was a pig of a thing.
Right.
It was no quicker than a 350 Yamaha, but I won the Northwest on it. And then we went to the TT, and the TT is the most amazing place. You never know what's in store for you. The ACU, God bless them, they still were working 30 years earlier. And at that particular time, I mean, that was water cooled. We had to stop the engines 15 minutes before the start. So when I actually pushed off the line, the engine was cold.
Right. So
I shut it off for quarter bridge, and it locked solid. And I thought, and I dropped the clutch, and eventually got it going on about 2.5 cylinders. It didn't feel very good. And I thought, bugger it, I'm not walking back. So I thought I'll just do a gentle lap on it. And where that would rev to, we were going to be revving it to 11. I was just taking it to 8.5 so it didn't lock again. And it was a bit of a damp, miserable day. And at the end of the first lap, I was just going to pull in, and I got pit board. I was on the leaderboard. I thought, bugger this, I better keep going. And I did 5 laps running it in. And then the last lap, I caned it. And
it got better and better?
Yeah, won the race. Yeah.
Oh, brilliant, brilliant, brilliant.
Yeah. And the following year on the 750, in 76, I'm not being big-headed, but it wasn't a matter if I'd win it, it's how much did I want to win it by, because the Kawasaki was that good. Yeah. And the clutch went on the line. Right. So it's just a weird place, you never know what's in store.
The rate of attrition was very high back then, wasn't it? I mean, clutches and everything else. I mean, truthfully, I bet a third of the field used to pack up, and you would all be down at the Highlander seized up on lap 1 or something like that, particularly in practice and everything else like that. Some great battles with you and the great Mr. Barry Sheen. That's probably Mallory Park, I'm guessing, through there.
I reckon, or Alton, yeah.
Yeah, one of the two. You can see the difference in styles there. Is that a wrist injury there you've got? I don't know. Rex White and
Rex was a lovely guy, wasn't he?
Yeah, Rex was born with an overactive knife and fork, wasn't he?
That's right. Yeah.
He was big fella. Liked his chocolates and everything else. He was team manager for Suzuki, by the way, and he was the guy.
Rex's famous saying was, "If things don't change, you'll stay as they are."
Yeah. That would be it.
That looks like Cadwell, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think it probably is Cadwell Park. Yeah. Noddy Newbold, number 6.
In the middle.
Yeah, Percy Tate, I think, John Newbold and
Jeff Barry.
Reed, yeah. Interesting stuff. Late Scarborough. Oh, there we are. Scarborough back.
Yeah.
That's actually me third there. So I must have been being lapped.
Yeah. I think I must be being lapped because I'm on a 250.
So we're going to jump a little bit because we're at Scarborough here now. You're very much involved with Scarborough now.
Yeah.
And I've been there. You've changed a lot of things. Things have moved on a great deal. Yeah. Anyone been to Oliver's Mount, Scarborough? Okay, quite a few people. You should go, seriously. I'd arguably say if you want to get close up and personal with bikes, it's the best viewing circuit you could ever go to.
It is.
You can sit on the banks and a bit like we used to do in the olden days and get very, very close to it. The paddock's always open and people are very amenable. And to ride it, in fact, it's quite strange because Barry Sheen put it as one of his favourite circuits. He didn't like road racing, but it is kind of like road racing.
Yeah. I mean, people said, oh, Barry, he was frightened of that as TT. He wasn't. I mean, whatever went wrong in Barry's head to make him anti-TT, he certainly wasn't frightened of it because the way he went round Scarborough, they went round some of the Grand Prix circuits, just as dangerous as the TT.
Yeah, I think he was probably a couple of years earlier than the other riders eventually, including Phil Reed, Agostini and so on and so on. I think he was right in some ways, and I always felt it was wrong to be a world championship, realistically, because it was hard for people, Italians and French and German and Spanish people, to come over and try and learn it with the.
I mean, and for the TT, when they lost the world championship status, it was the best thing that ever happened.
Yeah, I agree.
Because the people that went then went because they wanted to see.
They wanted to go, and they accepted exactly what went on there. I quite agree. Well, we'll come back to it again. Your long-time mechanic Nigel Everett, who's still repairing motorcycles and putting them all together. And in fact, Nigel Everett will be at the XL London show in February, restoring some of the Barry Sheen bikes that have come over from the Sheen family. They're all arrived. A lot of Yamahas, Suzukis, and everything else.
When Nigel first came to me, he was only probably 15, 16, and he lived down in Oxford. And he'd come up on his little moped, and he'd put his L plates, chuck them in the ditch, in the bushes, and ride his moped up on a weekend and ride it back. And I've always believed, that if people want something bad enough, they're going to get there. And I thought, this young fella is that desperate to be a mechanic, and I set him on. And I never regretted it.
No,
it was keen as mustard.
Yeah. Well, he's still repairing motorcycles. If you want any restoration work doing, then he is your man.
Yeah.
Some big grids then. I mean, there was 5 or 6 on the front. Oh, that's Brands Hatch. And it was bloody dangerous at times. Push starts with 5 or 6 on the front row and everything else like that. It was some of the scariest moments I think we could ever think about. That would be match races.
When we used to race at Silloth, did you ever race at Silloth?
Once, yeah.
They didn't, but there was no grid.
Well, Gaydon was the same, where you all line up in one row.
Whoever got in the front row first got on the front row.
Yeah.
And you'd have 16 riders on the front row, and you got to stand sideways because you couldn't stand this way around. And if one had gone down, the lot would have gone down.
Yeah. I did some club racing at a place called Gaydon. It was, your start was the main runway, and they just lined everyone up in one line. It was like a motocross.
I think that's fair.
Yeah, it probably was actually. Yeah. I'm sure you'd have got away nicely. Match races going around on the old lorry as having your arse. Yeah. Is that he's doing what Rossi does for himself and Barry's doing it for you? Is he just pulling?
We never got to the end of that, thank God. I don't know what happened there.
I'd like to think not. That's 79 or late 70s, 1979. I don't quite know where that is at, but one of the 79, no, it was the 77 meetings where I dressed up as him and qualified for him at Mallory Park. Now, I remember spending some time with you this season. You got to do 4 Grand Prix, I believe, was it, or 5?
Yes.
And you won 2 or 3 of them.
I won 2 of them, yeah.
2 of them, and on the podium on 3 out of the 4, and I think you broke down in the other one.
Yeah.
And you had to share the season with Barry Ditchman.
It's a bit of a long story, and it's not a moan, I'll just tell you the truth.
It was Stan Shenton, wasn't it? Stan Shenton didn't like Mick. I'm telling the truth. No.
What actually happened, in 1975, Barry and I signed a contract with Kawasaki. And I had a really good year, 75. I won the Superbike Championship, Northwest, TT, various other things. And Barry didn't fare that well. And halfway through 1976, things were going okay. And I was out for a meal with Barry one night, and Ditchman, and he'd had a bit too much to drink. And he told me how much Kawasaki were paying him, which was double what I was getting. And the win ratio was about 10-1 in my favour at the time. Right. So that started the rot, and it really actually never got, over the next 18 months, it never got any better.
Right.
And in fact, I rode a 250 Kawasaki in America, in Ontario, in 75, and finished 3rd on it behind De Hamel and Kenny. And I just fell in love with the bike. There's lots wrong with it, but it was potentially good. And I've been onto the Japanese, you've got to get this bike better because we can win Grand Prix on it. Eventually it came back out in 77, and for some reason Shenton put Barry on the bike for the first half of the year, and I was to ride it the second half. In the meantime, I would do the domestic championships on the 750. And I said to Kawasaki, well, to Shenton, I said, look, that's crazy, because if the bike's good, we could actually, one of us could win a world championship if we do the full season. Anyway, we got to, the first time I got to ride it was in the French Grand Prix at Paul Ricard, and I fell off in practice at top speed and I'd lost a lot of skin. But in the race, the clutch wasn't put together right and never got started. And this was about 2 races, maybe 3 races after the halfway stage, so I wasn't getting a fair crack of the whip. And lo and behold, we didn't actually swap places, but Barry kept on, he did a full season and I did half. Then I went to Assen, and before I went to Assen, I was down at Kawasaki. And I said to John Norman, who was the MD, and I wasn't being big-headed. I don't know if it's happened to you, Steve, or not, but just occasionally I've known I've been going to win a race. And it's a really weird feeling. I can't explain why. I just said to John Norman, I'm going to win this weekend. And he said, oh, yeah, we've heard it all before, which got me going a bit. And anyway, in qualifying, I think I was 3rd quickest in qualifying. That was okay. And we were, the night before the race, I'm sat down in the bar having a meal with Dave Buck, who was a Dunlop technician, and my teammate Barry Ditchman. And Barry and I never had any problems. We weren't mates, but we didn't have any problems. And Shenton is saying, all right, I'm going to my room to have a meeting with the Japanese, because it was all Japanese mechanics at that stage, apart from Nigel, who came along. So they went to bed and we just had another half a pint of beer. And then me and Nigel were sharing a room. So about half an hour later, we were going up the stairs. And as I'm passing Shenton's bedroom at this hotel, I heard my name mentioned. I stopped. And this sounds absolutely bizarre, but Nigel is actually married to Shenton's niece, so he's actually family. Yeah. And if he was here now, he'd actually go along with this. And Shenton's saying that Barry's had 1/3 place so far, and Mick's a dangerous rider, so we've got to make sure we get Barry to the front. And I'm not a violent person, but I was going to go in and flatten him. And then I thought, no, the Japanese won't understand it. So I went to my room. I went to my room and I didn't sleep. I laid in bed shaking all night. Got up the following morning and I remember saying to Nigel, just make sure those handlebars are tight. Why? I said, because I'm going to break the bloody thing when the push start. And I got up to about 29, well, I got a 20-second lead. It went up and up and up and up. And at the time, it was the old Assen circuit. It shaped a bit like a kidney. And we got the pitch signals from halfway around the circuit, which was brilliant. And my lap kept going up 2 or 3 seconds a lap, and it was a bit damp. And about 3 laps from the end, it started raining, and I got a slick on the rear and intermediate front on. So I knocked a couple of seconds off, and the next lap round, it's still plus, it's 1 plus 29 seconds. So I thought, that's strange. So I knocked another couple of seconds off, it's getting worse. And I came round again, it's still plus 29. I thought, they can't be going that slow. And then I came round the last lap, and it was 1 plus 7, and Nigel's waving like this. And of course, when you're out there, you can't see what's happening. It's the loneliest place in the world. And I thought, all I could see was that somebody made an awful lot of time on me. And it's a long way around, that one. The last lap, I had it sideways, I had the front tucked. I don't know how I stayed on it. And I came back and I pulled 4 seconds back. I won it by 11 seconds. And when I came in, Nigel said to me, I said, what the hell? What went on there? And he said Shenton was actually not giving him he was actually trying to get Ditchman up from 4th or 5th up onto the podium. He wasn't getting his signals. It wasn't until the last lap he realised that he was doing that. And Stan never came to say, well done. He didn't come to the prize presentation. And what really pissed him off is I won the weekend after in Sweden.
And so someone in Japan must have been thinking, yeah, should have started you off from the word go. But that bike proved to go on, because you didn't get the chance, but Cork Ballington went on to win 4 World Championships.
He did, yeah.
With that particular bike. It was dominant.
It was a fabulous bike. And for the technically minded, when we ran it at first in 1975, they got the pistons doing that, and it vibrated, and the race in America, the exhaust fell apart. It was vibrating that bad. By 77, the pistons were going down together, but they were counter-rotating.
Okay.
And the smoothest thing in the world. Right. It was gorgeous.
Right. No, it was a lovely motorcycle that went on to win so many with Corky Ballington, Greg Hansford. And you never got the chance to continue, though, with the smaller bikes?
I rode in 77 and did some Grand Prix, but again, we had a problem with Shenton, which wasn't good.
Okay, another TT, lovely sign to see, P1 plus 63.
That's down there.
Is it?
Holding the board out.
Oh, right, you were perhaps only plus 7 then.
Yeah, probably,
okay, all right. Where are we? Back to Scarborough, isn't it?
That's Oliver's Mount, yeah.
Yeah, it is Oliver's Mount, yes, yeah. Some big names and faces. Oliver's Mount, when you think back, I mean, Aggo's raced there, Phil Reed, lots of famous people.
We used to have a lot of international riders.
Yeah. Well, it was around the MCN Superbike Championship when I was doing it and everything else like that. We were discussing. Well, there's been 1 or 2. In fact, when you think about it, Scarborough probably has initiated a number of pranks and bits and pieces, and we were discussing about the coming down here, and I know Mick found it particularly funny. There was we were there as demonstrating, weren't we? I think we were. We'd all retired, and we came
were
back parading, and there a lot of foreign riders had come over for this event.
And this fella here, it pinched one of these loud hailers.
I hadn't pinched, I'd borrowed it off a 747. I'd borrowed it from British Airways because I thought I could have a lot of fun with it. And in fact, I didn't want to steal it and be caught, so I put it in my mechanic's bag and let him walk off with it. And he didn't know he'd got it till he got off, but anyway.
And we stood in this awning at this marquee, and there's Steve, myself and Barry. And Steve keeps saying, there's a Dutch guy there called Cees van Dongen. But Cees van Dongen, please go to the organiser's office, please. And we're all watching, and then he'd go up there to the organiser. No. Walk back down again.
Cees
van Dongen, please come. And he went up and down 3 times. Each time they said, "You've asked for me." They said, "No." And he realised that it was him that had done it. Yeah. So, and luckily I'd seen this before. He came in to see, the 3 of us stood there, and he said to Steve, he said, "Steve, how good are your lungs?" And he brought this contraption in. I don't think you've ever seen it. It's like it's a wooden thing with a propeller on it and a
It's originally designed to test your lung capacity, I think, wasn't it, or something? Well, I know it's a joke, but that's kind of what he said.
Yeah, and it's got, if you blow hard, it blows soot into your face. He's seen this, so he's saying, Cees said to Steve, he said, "Well, just try to see how your lungs are." And Steve said, "Oh, I've got asthma. And Sheeny said, he said, "I've got good lungs, I'll do it for you." And I'm thinking, no.
And we are there with a queue, mainly for Barry, queuing up for autographs. Yeah. Right? There was young girls and idolising Barry.
Barry couldn't wait to get up and sing. And his eyes opened up like Al Jolson. He said, "Parrish, excuse me, Parrish, you. And from that day onwards, we called him Sooty.
Yeah. You blinded me. But anyway, there was one or two little things that seemed to go on at Oliver's Mount over the years, wasn't there? But yeah, I've had awful lot of fun there, and hope to have a lot more now that you're involved in running it all. There's the 350 thing. Another bit of Scarborough here, moving along. There you are with Graham Wood.
Looks like we're lapping you again, though.
It does, doesn't it? Yeah. That obviously wasn't the start. It should have been much further up. 79. Macau.
Oh.
Now there's a can of worms.
Oh,
isn't it? There's a can of worms. Yeah. We've.
This fella has been the bane of my life all my career. With bloody one prank or another, but in one particular case, we got him back. The Kawasaki importer, a guy called Mr. Some Chinese name. His partner was Portuguese, and he was in the police, and it was a real hard case. He got a gun stuck down his trouser leg and that. And Steve had been up to something, so we thought we'd get him back. So we put some white powder in his suitcase. And we got this Portuguese copper to go in and arrest him.
Yeah, well, initially what happened was, there's a knock on my door, and I'm sat in there, I don't know what's going on. It was early evening, 6 o'clock or something like that. We've come to search your room. We have information that you were carrying drugs, and I said, "You can search my room," because I knew I wasn't carrying drugs, and sure enough, they go in my suitcase, and there's this big white bag of white powder, which turns out was talcum powder. So I'm thinking, this is obviously a setup, and this, that, and that. Anyway, straight away, I'm handcuffed now. They've handcuffed me to the bed, and in his sort of broken English, we're going for reinforcements and from the drug squad and everything else. And I'm thinking, this is 1 year one year after I've been in prison for blowing up the brothel. So I'm not. I didn't much like prisons in that kind of area, so I am starting to panic a little bit. So anyway, he clears off, and I'm now, there was no mobile phones there, I'm now on the phone, hotel phone, to ring down in the bar where my mechanic, Dave Johnson, was having a drink, and I was going to go down and meet him, knowing full well that Dave had got his toolbox with him as hand luggage, because I wouldn't pay the freight for it, and in there was a hacksaw. So I've dragged the bed across to get to the phone, and I'm now on the phone, let me come back up there. Well, anyway, he's halfway through cutting my handcuffs off, and I'm going to have to escape out of the country or something like that, when the door bursts open. It's full of all these bloody lot pissing themselves laughing. Had properly set me up, and that was the end of it. But anyway, yeah, Macau was always a few issues went on with animals being liberated and bits and pieces.
We got some really good Portuguese friends who took us downtown. And
to eat in their local food.
It was really like shack conditions, but the food was superb, and they got frogs and chickens and whatever it was live, and he said he wanted that, and you got it. And there are these big black toads, and Steve, being a bit of animal rights lover, when we were leaving, he got a couple of these black toads, and I was driving the bus. It was like a minibus with those 12-seater things, and he's holding on to these black toads. I don't know this thinking I'm going to do with them. One of them leaps out of his hand and it's on the floor. And all the way back to the hotel, I daren't put my foot on either the throttle or the brake in case I trod on the bloody thing. And we get back home to the hotel, and we sat having a drink. Don't know what he'd been up to. And suddenly there's a phone call from Chris Carter, who
was a large journalist.
He's a bit like an egg on legs, lovely fella, but a journalist. And I'm sat next to Steve, and I can hear the phone call. Parrish, get up here, there's a toad in my bath. And he's terrified of. So Steve went up, and he said, and he eventually, imagine this big fat fella going to get in the bath, terrified of this toad. And the toad's looking up at him, and I can't imagine which would be the most terrified.
No,
but as Steve got the toad out of the bath, rescued it, and just as he shut the door, he says, by the way, Chris, there's another one in here somewhere. Left him with it.
I think it was in his wash bag, actually. He realised when it started moving around. But yes, we could go on all night about Macau, some of the things that went on. Now, talking a bane of your life, and my life for that matter, this was the NR Never Ready, I think we named it. No, the Never Ready 5.
Nearly ready.
Nearly ready, okay.
Yeah.
And I have to say, some smart moves have gone on over the years with different races, but you managed to get Honda to pay you to ride a Suzuki for a year, pretty much.
I did.
Yeah.
I did, yeah.
Because it was never ready or nearly ready. They decided, or I think you told Honda that you needed practice and everything else, and they paid for an RG 500.
I had two contracts. I had a contract with Honda Britain to ride the Formula 1 bike.
Right.
But this thing it's a big white elephant, really. It was never going to work. I think now with modern electronics, modern technology, you might get somewhere near it, but at the time it wasn't going to work.
Right.
And
because they decided to take the two-strokes on with a four-stroke, didn't they?
Yeah,
that was really what they wanted to do.
At the time, we couldn't understand it. I mean, when Gerald Davidson came to me at the last meeting at Brands Hatch in 1978 and said, I'd like to discuss you riding a Grand Prix Honda 500, I thought, crikey, it's going to be an improvement on what Halewood and Redmond and that had. I couldn't wait to get started. And in actual fact, they just got it completely wrong. And I think that we couldn't understand for a long time why they got it wrong. And I think what's happened is that the guys that were mechanicking and engineering for the Halewood era in the 60s, like all Japanese countries, if you're half decent, you move up the pecking order. And these guys who had been engineers with the Halewood thing in the 60s, they went out at the top of the tree. And they sat around cross-legged one night and decided that without really understanding how good the two-strokes were, we'll just have a 3-year project and go win a Grand Prix with the 4-strokes like we used to do. And it was the post odds on the ground that had to sort it out. And it was just never going to work. No.
I mean, it must have spent literally millions and millions of pounds on it.
They did, yeah.
And they didn't they bring a road version out?
They did afterwards, and I think that was just a bit of a face save, if you like.
Yeah.
I mean, we had one. I used to go over to Japan and watch some of the dynos and that, and they used to go bang fairly often. And we had one mechanic, who was an ex-MV mechanic, called Carlo. And Carlo had the biggest pair of ears you've ever seen in your life, and he was deaf.
Right.
And my mechanic Nigel, we used to sit in front of these dyno rooms and with the glass, and you couldn't see them on there. And this particular time, we let Carlo on the dyno, and it was just the front wheel strapped in and the back wheel, and Carlo's on this, and there's all these little Japanese technicians going down because it's a big dyno house with loads of dynos in it. And Nigel's saying to all these Japanese guys, and he got 20 of these guys looking at Carlo on the bike, and then Carlo said, just watch his ears. And he put the wind up on the thing, and Carlo's ears are flapping like this. Oh dear, a little Japanese laughing and rolling about.
And that was 79 British Grand Prix, I think it was.
Yes.
Where you
I'd seen a 50-pence piece the lap before. And I thought, if I get there quick, I'm going to get it.
You got it, I think. You did get it. But it was you started towards the back of the grid. You had to push it about 40 mile an hour to get it started, didn't you?
That was the first year we ran it. And I don't know whether you know the engine or not, but the pistons they were called oval, but they weren't. The flat sides and the round at the end. And each piston had 2 conrods and 4 inlet valves and 4 exhaust valves. And the reason they'd done that is they wanted a V8, and that was the nearest they could get configuration-wise. But obviously the FIM rules wouldn't allow that. And this thing had got absolutely no flywheel whatsoever. And the first year we ran it, it wouldn't tick over less than 7,000 RPM. That was maximum. And imagine trying to bump start that. It was nearly impossible. The power would start at 12.5. It would finish abruptly at 17.5, but it would run on to about 21,000. It just, and like in Top Gear, if you shut the throttle, the back wheel, the engine tried to stop and it'd be hopping the back wheel. And the flag dropped at Silverstone. Mr. Honda was there, and the chief mechanic had told me before the race that they weren't going to fill the tanks up to do race distance because they didn't want the disgrace of finishing last in front of Mr. Honda. And I could have told them it wasn't going to finish anyway because it'd never done Grand Prix distance. Anyway, the flag dropped, and the Takazumi Katayama and myself were at the back of the grid. Katayama started his, I missed it. I had about 3 goes, and by the time I actually jumped on the back of it, my legs were like rubber. And I'm sat on the back of it, and it was on the back wheel. And I knew we were all having a bit of fun, so I went down the full length of the start and finish straight, first, second, third, on the back wheel. And unknown to me, because there was massive blow-by down the sides of the piston rings, and it was at 45 degrees, the oil level was higher than the breather outlet, and it was pumping oil onto the rear tyre. And everyone down the pit could see it apart from Muggins here. I tipped it in and down I went.
And I came around the second lap and hit the oil and went down, so thank you very much indeed for that.
There is a God.
Touche. Is that it? What? No, that's my RG. That's the RG. That painted red, wasn't it?
Red, yeah.
It painted red to keep you in practice and everything else. But it was quite a special. There it is. Yeah, that's it. Mark II or Mark III RG 500. Yeah. All paid for by Honda. That must be very unique. I can't think.
It was, yeah. And I fell off it. The worst crash I ever had was at the northwest on that, and the rear wheel came loose going into York Hairpin.
Yeah, I remember it, yeah. Broke the magnesium adjuster.
Yeah. And that morning I'd been around the circuit with Billy Nutt, the clerk of the course, deciding we wanted to straw bales. And there's a telephone box, an old red GPO box, about 40 yards further past the hairpin. He said, "Do you want any straw bales on that?" I said, "No, no one lit that."
And then you went, press button B. Okay. What's that?
That's the NR.
Oh, is it? Oh, right.
It was an amazing thing because if you look at that photo, what looks like the fairing is actually the chassis. And about 6 bolts hold the engine, the seat assembly and everything into the headstock. And when we used to test at Suzuka, it used to fracture around the headstock. Right. And I'd do 3 or 4 laps and come in, and the guy get there with his TIG welder, weld this cracker.
Really?
And I go out again. It's just complete madness, absolute madness.
Bloody hell. Quite extraordinary. You wouldn't think they would get it that wrong, would you? No, that's a TZ750 Yamaha there. Yeah. That's having a jet change.
I hate it.
For you with your porn star.
Did you ever ride one of those?
TZ750?
I hated it.
I did. I never liked them ever. I much preferred the RG. Yeah. I never really got on with them.
They were too soft.
There was something seemingly very wrong, and then the heat of the engine would warm the suspension up, and it would get worse and worse and worse. Yeah, yeah. 4-stroke era.
Yeah. Well, I rode that alongside the NR.
Oh, did you? Yeah. Right, that same year.
That was the British part of the champion of my contract.
Okay, and that was a far better bike than the million pound, whatever. Yeah. Okay, there it is again. That's the kind of original XR69s, which now they say they are, but they're not proper ones anymore.
No,
I don't think, are they?
But they put modern engines in.
Haven't you still got one of these?
I've got that, yeah.
That bike?
Yeah.
Okay, that's for sale as well, or not? Is it? Okay. Is that going to the Isle of Man auction? Do you think?
It might do.
It might do.
Might do, yeah.
Okay, all right. We'll wait and see. That was the corner that you had your crash at. Yeah. Rob Mack, Joey Dunlop.
No, that's me. Rob Mack's hat on. I went to the start and forgot my hat, so he let me spare one.
Where'd you leave it?
Can't remember.
You lost your helmet?
If I'd known where I left it, I wouldn't have left it, would I?
Well, probably not. That's a very, very good point. After a night out,
Probably.
I'll never forget, and he's not in the shot, Roger Marshall, and it will never not make me giggle when Roger Marshall rode for Honda and Barry Simmons would have been the team manager. I think you were there when he drank. They used to have a competition, didn't they? Who could drink 18 pints of Guinness?
He would drink 8 pints at lunchtime, Guinness,
Yeah.
and 8 pints at night. And at the morning of the race, we're up in Roger's bedroom. And
They had a press conference thing, didn't they?
Oh, it was a colour of my Kawasaki. And he's laid in bed, and it's a bit like it's like almost like a religious event. He's laid there going, oh. And Simmons, the team manager, is saying, come on, Roger, you've got to race. Oh. If you eat something, you'll feel better. Oh. And then Simmons says to me, he says, I think somebody's poisoned him.
No, I heard the one, he's got a virus, and Mick said, I bought him one of them.
I said, I bought him a pint of it myself.
Yeah. I mean, can you imagine that happening now? I mean, it was, like you say, 16 pints was the thing.
And then that night we went down into Dublin to see ZZ Top.
Oh, yeah.
Just madness.
Yeah, it
was good fun.
It was just wild. Look where people stood on the pavement and everything else like that.
Yeah.
A lovely shot of the number 10 Kawasaki here. Right, a bit later on.
That's Parliament Square.
Yeah.
It was a parade lap, and as you know, those were by the time they got to this, maybe 84 with the RGs, they did handle really well in the Isle of Man.
Yeah.
And I came through Hanley's, and it started weaving about, and I thought, I must have a flat tyre. So I stopped it ever so quick, and the rear wheel spindle was out that far. It was just ready for the brake caliper to drop off it.
Come all the way.
Frightened the life out of me.
I can well imagine. That was a parade lap as such.
Yeah, I don't know.
Now, your love of trials, which you're still doing very much, you're off to France soon, aren't you?
Just come back.
Have you just come back from France, trials riding?
Yeah.
That's your lovely aerial.
Yeah,
You've
sold
now
it.
Tiger Cub. Sold it now, have you?
Yeah.
Tiger Cub is your bike now, isn't it? Or Bantam?
Bantam.
I beg your pardon.
Bantam.
Yeah. And is that legal?
No.
No. Do they check them much? Or
No.
No. All right. Okay.
No.
So it's a 375 Bantam, is it?
Something like that. Yeah.
That means it's a 400. Right. But the aerial was a pretty trick bike.
I just love riding it, but it just got to a point where you're not going to believe this, but I did everything within the spirit of Pre-65, and to go further, I couldn't go any further. I did everything with it.
Right. Okay. Right.
And so I just decided to sell it and start with the Bantam, which I'm quite enjoying playing with.
Parading, that's the bike that Steve Wheatman owns, I think, isn't it? And he kindly lets you ride that pretty much wherever you want, whenever you want.
I won the senior in 81 on that.
Okay.
And it's an ex-Randy Mamola bike. That is the only bike I've ever ridden around the Isle of Man where, you know, when you're going over the jumps, you've got to be absolutely 90 degrees, otherwise
it tied itself in a knot.
That one, you could, wherever you took off from whatever angle, it landed properly.
Really?
It was bizarre.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
Well, it's still in pristine condition, and the lovely Steve Wheatman looks after it. There it is again on that parade lap. Is that Kevin 34? It's not. No, it's Steve Plater, isn't it? Yeah, on Kevin Schwantz's bike.
Yeah.
Actually, on another parade lap round. Where the hell's that then?
I don't know, but that's Corky behind. I don't know the number 4 is.
No,
Is it McGuinness, isn't it?
Yeah, would be John McGuinness. It's obviously another parade lap around. We've got Norton Development Team. So you've been involved with the Norton pretty much from the early stages with their racing development.
Yeah. I got involved. They've been going about 2 years when I got involved with it.
Okay, all right. And still pretty much involved. We're back to Oliver's Mount here. There's Mr. Reed and some of Steve Wheatman's bikes and bits and pieces and stuff like that. Oliver's Mount, you've got plans to move it on even more? Yeah,
3 years ago it stopped running.
Yes, they had a few issues there, didn't they?
They had a few issues, and Peter Hillaby, who has always been with chatting on the way down, he's always been really good with us, but he's got health issues, and it just got out of his control. And I got a phone call saying that it's going to go to the wall. So I didn't want to say that happened, because Oliver's Mount was the first time I'd actually ever seen a road race. So it probably was the beginning of me wanting to race motorbikes. So I have a bit of an affinity with the place. So I rang Eddie Roberts, and I knew Eddie had got Mallory Park up and running. And to cut a long story short, we both decided that we didn't see it as a career chance because of his age, but neither did we want to see Scarborough disappear. So we got together, and we've since got a third guy coming with us. We spent an awful lot of money making the place a lot safer, and we're going to spend a lot more money. And we had 2 meetings this year, and we were blighted. The weather wasn't good at all on either, really, and we still did okay. So I think next year, if we get some good weather, we'll get some money in, and we're just going to plough it all back in for 2 years and just make it absolutely perfect.
Used to be quite surprising, and I don't think it goes on so much now, but there was definitely, it's quite interesting, there was a real north-south split a bit back in the day, wasn't there? Us southerners had come up there, and obviously you were heading the northern contingent, and there was a number of people from up that way, and I'd turn up there with Barry and maybe...
One year, Barry won it, and I finished second, and they were actually starting to throw stuff.
I know, yeah.
And Barry was going around on the open top car, and I actually had to go with him, so that
so they didn't throw.
That's right.
Unless they got a good aim, maybe to get you as well. But it was a little bit of that. So give him plenty of shit tonight, won't you? Because he's down south tonight.
But we used to do. They used to have the best part of Scarborough, Oliver's Mount. Actually, it wasn't at Oliver's Mount.
It was down at the
Spa Ballroom.
Spa Ballroom, wasn't it?
Peter used to put the Spa Ballroom on the Saturday night, and we'd go in there, and Steve and Barry and myself, and you get in there and there'd be a lot of folk round, and there'd be girls coming up and they want their arms signing, and they'd do that. Then they want this signing, and then without any warning, the bra would be off and they want the boob signing. So I'd hold a boob, and Barry would very carefully sign it. And then he'd hold that one and I'd sign that one. And they just kept coming. My missus is about 8 deep at the far end. I can see her head bobbing up. What are you doing? We're just signing autographs. They're magic nights.
Yeah, they were actually. They were really, really good fun, and just everyone would be in there. The whole crowd would end up in there at night time, wouldn't it? Yeah. It really was rather special. What's that? Hang on, what was that then? That's
God only knows.
You being awarded.
It's the biggest bounce coin I've ever had in my life.
Yeah. Well, anyway, that's happening at the Isle of Man, and you've got your Norton jacket. And there's Eddie Roberts. Eddie used to race with us back in the day. Then he ran Mallory Park with Stuart Hicks.
But his main job is supplying Pirelli tyres to the British Superbike.
That's right. It's his trucks and everything else.
And the nice thing with Eddie, relative to Oliver's Mount, is because we've both got the same background, when we see issues arrive, we think absolutely in parallel because we've come the same background, and he's a really good guy to work with, and he's quite smart as well. It's a good job one of us is.
Yeah, well, someone's got to be there. Going back to nights out and bits and pieces and dinners and everything else, Scarborough used to have, well, the club is Auto 66, and Peter Hillaby used to run a motorcycle road racing show up there at York Football Ground. Oh, no, York Horse Racing.
You bastard.
Not a very nice way to treat the gentleman that he's talking about. But I can't remember what Mick had done, but there's always been this kind of, well, we say north-south, but he must have done something to me. But we were there, I think we got our ties and jackets on, and it was the awards night for the Auto 66, and I think we might have been guests of honour or something, and were awarding them and this, that, and that. And I sat on a long table with lots of us. There must have been 12, 18 of us on this table, and it was all, it went a bit quiet and stale, and I thought it needed livening up a little bit, and I can't remember what went on, but I remember going off to the gents, excuse me, it's rather disgusting. I went off to the gents' urinals, and I got those tablets that are laying in the bottom of them to freshen things up. And I think I gave the waitress a £5 or something to put them on a nice plate on napkins and bits and pieces.
And I was in deep conversation with somebody, and well, and you know, 12 months ago, there's a piece in Motorcycle News, and he was actually admitting the crimes it committed that no one knew about. Until I saw it 12 months ago, I didn't even know about it.
Yeah. He just thought it was a dodgy all sort. And it was an all sort. Now, we started off early on actually talking about were you having me thrown out at Snetterton and just nicking the championship and bits and pieces? I can't help but remind you of, I think it was last year at the Classic Motorcycle Club meeting at Donington Park. Remember, Mick,
You bastard again.
Mick,
This man, go on.
Mick phoned me one day. I'm actually on my way to Donington Park to the CRMC meeting, and he phoned me just out of the blue. He said, I've just read the new regulations for Goodwood, because it was all just about to come up. And he said, it says you've got to have an international licence or a national licence. And I think we've got whatever licences.
Clubman.
Yeah, clubman or whatever it was. I don't really know. We have whatever's the minimum you have to have. And he said, I've got a feeling we might have to have our licences upgraded. I said, well, I'll tell you what, I'm on my way to Donington.
Because, in fact, just the national licence, it's ridiculous. We would have to do 6 races and get them ticked off.
Yeah.
And there's no way I was going to do that, and I knew he wouldn't.
No.
And I thought, if anybody can fiddle it, he's the man. And in fairness, I wasn't the sharpest knife in the box, because I knew I was going to come off second worst.
So I said, well, I'm on my way to Donington Park now, and I'll have a word with Sally Russell, who looks after it, and she does all the licence signing and bits and pieces. Leave it with me, mate, I'll come back to you. So anyway, that afternoon I went straight up to see Sally. I said, look, we've got to get Mick here. I owe him one, actually, for having me chucked out at Snetterton. And she went right along with it, as well as everyone else there. And so I phoned Mick up, and I said, and as it happened, we didn't have to change our licence at all. It was for the international people coming over or whatever. And anyway, our licences were fine. So I phoned Mick up. I said, you're right. I said, we've got to do some laps around Donington Park, and as long as you do 3 laps around Donington Park at a set time, everything will be right, and Sally will sign it off and the licence will be good. So I said, your only chance is to turn up tomorrow to come and do it, because this was a Saturday and it was Sunday. He said, oh, I've got a trial booked. I said, well, this could be your only chance or whatever.
I rang Sally. I said, Sally, we won it 12 months ago. Why do I need to come and do 3 laps around Donington Park? Well, that's how it is. And I said to him, I've got a cracking trial I want to do. Well, you've got to make your mind up.
Anyway, I organised this wonderful Gilera for you to ride, and so it was one of George Beale's. It was the replica Gilera worth lots and lots of money and everything else. So sure enough, 10 o'clock in the morning, Mick, or 11 o'clock, Mick turns up.
What I couldn't understand was that he rung me 3 times the way down. Are you on your way? I thought this has been very tentative. And then when I get there in my car, he's waving me into a parking spot. This isn't right. This is not established. This is not the established that I know. And 12 o'clock came. I got my leathers on. It's a hot day. There's sweat dripping off the end of my nose. I said, what am I riding? He says, there's a Benelli here.
That was it, Benelli, yeah.
So, and there's George Beale with it and John Cronshaw. And I said, why aren't you in your leathers? He said, I'm in the next session. And at this stage, I'm beginning to feel distinctly uncomfortable. And they got the starter going, and they pretended to start it, and George Beale jumped off the bike and says, bloody ignition, it's gone again. And as if by magic, hey, I've got a bike for you. And he came round the corner with a rusty old Honda 50 step-through with a wooden box on the front of it.
And I said, well, it's your only chance. So off he went for a lap in the lunch hour. It took the lunch hour to get through, yeah. But in fairness, I have to say, when you came back, he had a smile on his face, because he said, first time I've ever got through Craner Curves, flat out.
And the chicane.
Yeah, and the chicane for that matter. Brilliant. Well, I can only apologise. I think we're pretty much all square now, as it happens. So that's...
Oh, no, we aren't. Oh, no.
We'll wait and see. Right, I think it's probably time for some questions from the floor right now. We've covered an awful lot of things. Thank you very much indeed for our slideshow. We don't normally get that. That's Ray Gale. Thank you very much. Where is Ray? Down here. Thank you very much to Ray to put that
together. Ladies and gentlemen, I have to say what a pleasure it is to listen to you.
Yes. That's not what he said to Phil Reed.
We've had so many... What did you say?
I said it's not what you said to Phil Reed, is it?
Okay, no. We won't go there, okay? But
no, I agree.
It's an absolute pleasure to have you. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you, Mick. You're not done with him yet. Thank you. So it's now time for you to throw things at his.
Yeah, absolutely. But we need to ask you about what the excuse was for Goodwood. You've come up with 2 to me.
You might have seen that I sat on the bike, and a lot of the people, it was a Le Mans start and you had to run across, but I'd pulled groin muscle playing cricket the day before. I actually hit a 4 and didn't realise you didn't have to run. So anyway, I ran and pulled a groin muscle. So I got dispensation to sit on the bike.
Do you know something? At just the same time as he pulled the groin muscle, I saw 3 pink pigs flying past every.
And so I got special dispensation from my mate Sally Russell to sit on the bike as my partner ran, because you have to run across and get on the bike. And it was all arranged that he was going to run across there and touch me and I was going to go.
No,
but
whoa. You got to stand behind the bike with the bike in neutral.
my groin was hurting.
Then he touched you.
I couldn't stand up. My groin was
That was the bloody thing in gear, the clutch halfway out.
No, and what happened was the clutch started dragging. I had no choice. And a wasp flew in my helmet, and I didn't see the flag. And anyway,
oh dear.
But I purposely slowed down, let the others come past.
Hi Mick, good to see you. Can you tell us why you picked number 10 as your lucky number?
First of all, I'm not superstitious, and I don't see it as a lucky number. I was born on the 10th of July, and in those days we actually make quite the majority of our money on start money, appearance money, and it was important to have a strong image. I mean, the Kawasaki gave me a strong image. I always kept the same helmet for the same reason. You needed a good image, and the number 10, it was all part of the thing. And I mean, you see modern GP riders now, and okay, the top guys, you can spot them a mile off, but they don't seem to bother with this image so much.
Well, I think unfortunately it's all about the kind of signing on fee. The helmet companies change the designs. They get paid an awful lot of money to sell one helmet and then the following year a different one. So I think it's a lot more commercialised. But I completely agree. From a commentator's point of view, it's a bloody nightmare.
Yeah. And the thing is, the helmets they've got now, the works of art, if you see them this close, but from a camera, they're all either muddy blues and muddy reds.
It's a splodge. Yeah, I completely agree. But it was very much the case back in our era. As we were able to see on the grids here, you could tell everyone by the helmet design, which I don't think you'll be able to do that in 2017 if you look back to see who everyone was. So, yes, good question. And it was basically, you're born on the 10th of July, 19...
Whenever.
18.
Yeah, all right. Yeah.
There's actually 2 questions. One is to both of you. Do you think the speeds on the TT are getting too fast now? And the second one is to Mick. When you're a professional motorcycle racer, when one of your fellow professionals turns up with the registration number PEN 15, I think it was, what was your initial reaction and thought?
The what? The EE?
No, he said one of your professional competitors turned up with this ridiculous number plate of PEN 15.
Well, I was...
He immediately thought he was a prick.
Well, I was disgusted.
Yeah. Well, I can only say it's your mind because it says PEN 15. So it's obviously your warped northern sense of humour. Well, I can see.
What was the other question?
The other question was, do we think the speeds are too high at the Isle of Man now?
No, they're not. You could have asked the same question in 1920, 1930, all the way through. The lap speeds, it's diminishing returns. The lap speeds in the 20s and 30s are jumping up miles an hour at a time. They're getting tighter and tighter. But, you know, the bikes, the biggest single factor for the speeds to increase, whether it be horsepower, tyres or whatever, the one most important factor is the state of the roads. You know, the corners are being taken out, they don't have many bumps in them, and it's quicker. But I don't see any reason why it should stop. And the bikes are actually... The same guys are still going to win, but the bikes are a lot easier to ride now than they used to be.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, as Mick rightly says, a number of each year corners get straightened out. Most importantly, surfaces get changed. I mean, even just this year, the one thing that I reckon probably would have made half a second a lap probably is May Hill going up there. It's completely smooth now, and that was a corner that was defined by if you could hang on the bike and it didn't bounce across the road.
Yeah.
Certain areas, so it's not just a corner. If that corner's smoothed out, then you carry that speed all the way along the next straight. So certain places like Brandish and where they've straightened the corners out, and the road surfaces, and of course the tyres and everything else. But yeah, you're right. I'm sure that when someone did the first 100-mile-an-hour lap, Malcolm Uphill, I think it was, almost certainly someone said that's ridiculous. So I don't know. And there was some talk about maybe you shouldn't have 1,000 cc's or have 600s, but corner speed is probably higher on a 600.
We have the same bother with Scarborough. At the minute, the ACU won't let us run thousands. In actual fact, the lap speed from a 600 to 1,000 is about a tenth of a second in it, which means that the 600s are going around corners quicker than the 1000s, because obviously the 1000s are quicker in a straight line. And it's on the corners where the problems happen. So if you're going to use that argument, then we should ban 600s, not 1000s.
Okay, any more questions, ladies and gentlemen? Yes, one in front.
I do the marriage problems if you've got, or Mick does the motor.
Any health issues?
Yeah, any health issues, I can certainly get my stethoscope.
So when you were racing the triple two-strokes, were they prone to seizure, and how did you deal with the centre pot going tight and without getting onto rude topics and things like that?
The Kawasakis were in 75, 76. They were the ref too much, and they used to destroy crankshafts. They didn't quite get the sums right, because the average Formula 750 race was 100 miles long.
Right.
The cranks are known last about 70.
Oh, really?
So it didn't make for good motoring. But 77, 78, they dropped the revs down to 9.5, and they're quite reliable then.
Right.
But they're very rarely seized.
And I think what probably used to happen, and I don't know if you were that involved with it, but you would often just jet the middle cylinder up if it got hotter or something like that, and just sort your carburation. Carburation back in those days was literally done by a plug chop, generally, wasn't it? If you look back at a lot of the pictures, you were forever coasting the last part of the circuit. After a plug chop, mechanics would take the plugs out, you'd take them over to Vince French, bloody Champion or whoever, you'd have a look at them, go up a jet, down a jet.
You wouldn't give one to him to look at, that's for sure.
Down 3 jets.
Another question maybe, ladies and gentlemen, before I call time. Okay, thank you very much indeed.
Can I just...
Of course you can.
Can I just tell you my favourite story of all time?
Go on then.
It regards one James Whittam. In 1989, he was riding for me in the Suzuki team. And I'd done a deal over the winter with a company called Fieldshare.
Yeah,
leathers. They weren't the best, but I got all my 4 riders in these leathers. We didn't get any money, but the team looked good. And James, he said to me, I said, I don't like these leathers. They're not comfortable. And I think if I fell off, they wouldn't be safe, which wasn't true. And he kept having a go at me about this. And I think the reason was he probably had a bit of an offer from somebody else to pay him some money to wear some leathers. Anyway, we got to the first meeting at Mallory Park, and he was on the superbike. He did about 3 laps, and he came back in, and he pulled up alongside me. He says, Mick, I've told you before, I am sick and tired. These leathers are so uncomfortable. I just can't wear them. And I look, and he's got a right long neck, hasn't he? And I look behind his neck, and there's a bloody coat hanger hook stuck out. And you know, he never mentioned the leathers for the rest of the season.
And I must tell you, in some ways it's rather a sad story, but also I think it will make you giggle, and I'm sure Mick knows about this, but Michael Rutter, who we all know races now, he's coming to the end of his career, but I raced a lot, and Mick would have done with his father, Tony Rutter, who was an excellent rider, really, really good 250, 350 rider. And unfortunately, Tony's career came to an end at Mondewey Park.
It did,
He had a terrible accident there. And he was taken off to hospital, and his family couldn't find him. I don't know if you know this. They went around all the hospitals in Barcelona, and they were looking for him, and they spent 2 days. They finally found him by going back to some of the hospitals and looking at each bed, and Tony Rutter was in there, very badly injured, with Frank Thomas written at the bottom of the bed. Honestly, that was the name of his letters. That was it. That's a very true story.
Oh,
Thank you for that. Mick, every time we have a motorsport legend here, we like to present that person with a piece of the original 1908 Brooklands track. And that is for you, sir.
Oh, thank you very much.
Okay, that's genuine stuff. It has been sealed, his hasn't.
Bloody hell.
But it will tell you his is bigger.
It is.
I I've seen it and it isn't.
He'll be throwing at that at Scarborough next time I go round.
Nothing so easy. Yeah. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Thank you.
So finally, the raffle. Hopefully, my wingman is here with me. Someone has lost their raffle tickets, and if these are the winners, especially the bottle of wine, I'm going to keep it, okay? So if you're foolish enough to lose your raffle ticket, it's not yours, is it?
Yeah, it's mine.
Okay.
No, but I'm sure at the end of this, Mick would be happy to sign any autograph.
And your book.
Yeah, I've got some books here if anyone does want a bit of a giggle, but we'll be at the back if you want your signing done by Mick or whatever you would like.
Right, okay. First number coming.